Ladies and gentlemen, it might not look it, but it's a very intense time in the market right now. And the reason why it's intense is because on one hand, we have Bitcoin's 4-year cycle saying we're going to be going upwards from here. But that same 4-year cycle only has about 4 months remaining. We don't have much time left. And so if Bitcoin wastes time correcting downwards, well, not only does the threat of the cycle breaking start to get higher and higher and higher, and tensions start to rise in that regard, but also, just by default, we are wasting time that we could be using on the next move to the upside, which has many, many implications. Bitcoin right now, on a short-term perspective, is fighting a very important neckline for resistance. Luckily, there is some good news that's come in the last 24 hours, and it's coming from Bitcoin's weekly chart. The weekly chart has managed to sustain itself for 2 weeks in a row consecutively, which could indicate some major support in this region, could indicate the fact that people don't actually want the price to go lower here, and could lead the way forward for another move to the upside, which is much needed at this point. But there's no real clarity yet. However, I will be looking into this weekly chart. I'll be looking into the short-term charts. I'll also discuss some developments on the DXY and traditional markets. And then finally, I'll take a look at our big hurdles on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general, the things that we really need to conquer here. There have been developments, and I'll show you these developments today concisely. So let's get into it. Before we do so, just quickly here, we have the Bitunix Exchange. It's a global non-KYC exchange. You can access it from anywhere in the world. Using my referral link down below, you'll get access to a 15% trading fee discount attached to your account for life. So you'll save thousands of dollars there in fees over the long term just by signing up with my referral link. Not to mention, you'll help out the channel as well. Well, why would you sign up? Again, it's globally accessible. It's never been hacked before in about 4 years, which is exceptionally good. It's been on the market for 4 years with no security breach. And it's got all the features and trading pairs that you would expect with a major exchange, just with a lot lower risk historically and no regulatory pressure right now. So check it out with my link down below and sign up. I appreciate that, guys. Let's get into the content. So we know the importance on Bitcoin at this point, or at least you should know the importance at this point of the major yellow lines I have on the screen here, stemming backwards from 2017 and 2021 respectively. They're cyclically relevant and they form Bitcoin's current macro range. It's this macro range which Bitcoin held within for months on end, starting in November through to February. You saw a brief deviation below it, and now we're back above this level with confirmed resistance support flip. This is the macro range that Bitcoin is in, and hence the macro range Bitcoin needs to remain within in order to maintain the current macro price action and macro context. If we break this range to the upside, of course, we've started our next macro move. We break it to the downside, of course, we've ended this macro consolidation and likely entered a bear market at that point. We don't want to be dropping below something like $93,000. It will not end well for Bitcoin, especially at this part of the cycle. So rarely the lowest that Bitcoin can go is 93,000, but even going that low, as I've mentioned before, is wasting precious time. We only have about 4 months left of the cycle. And of course, I'm assuming the cycle will remain at this point for the sake of argument. If we do end up correcting downwards and we only have 4 months left of the cycle, from a time we get back upwards, we could have 3 months left. And then with 3 months left, we'll only really have time for maybe 1 or 2 more macro moves, right? Not really much time to do anything really significant. And then the top would be, probably somewhere in the $130,000 region, as we've discussed many times before. Enough time to do something significant. I mean, it's not a small jump from 114 to 130, and you could see significant altcoin performance during that period of time, but it wouldn't be anything ridiculous like we've seen in prior cycles, is what I'm saying. For the opportunity of that to occur, we really want to be moving upwards as soon as possible, and this is why I'm just building the context here for the video. This is why this particular region is so important. Now, we have had, I'll start with the weekly chart because it's probably the most important stuff, and it's a new stuff as well. You haven't seen it before, so it's good to start with this. But I don't want to bore you here. We have very, very important weekly closes occurring. And the reason being, and you've probably seen this from someone like Mega Whale Crypto, if you watch his channel, he's someone I work with very closely. The 62 level on the weekly chart RSI is the origin of RSI price action on Bitcoin. It might not seem relevant until you really zoom in and take a look. It's where the RSI started. And it's no coincidence for that reason that retests around this level have been incredibly influential for Bitcoin historically speaking, right? We've seen many retests in that vague 62 level on the RSI. Yeah, plenty of fake outs as well. Bitcoin's been around for, a decade, more than a decade. So that's to be expected, but also many valid retests beyond the point of coincidence. And I'm just circling multiple occasions now where the price is directly reversed from that 62 level. Some of them don't look like they're precise that I'm circling, but they are because within the weekly candle itself, we touched it, even though the candle didn't close there. Obviously, the RSI is a retrospective indicator, and so we have actual, where the close happened, not necessarily where the wicks happened. But you can see more or less on, 60 to 70%, maybe even more than that, of the occasions which have interacted with the 62 level on the RSI, it has led to significant reversals on the RSI and hence the price chart. You could go ahead to your own chart, or maybe I'll do it here, and just line up where these RSI retests have occurred on the support line and on the RSI and resistance line, and line up with the price chart, and you see major influential pivotal zones on the price chart. And we could do that, it would just be a waste of time. The point is, it does occur. And if we're looking at the price action right now, one of the most important things, in fact, let's just go through the last year just so you fully understand this. Rejection of the 62 level right here, okay, led to a rejection on the price chart and a swing down to the bottom of the macro range. Breaking the 62 level led to the move upwards with ETFs. Touching it right here led to short-term support, which we eventually lost. When we lost it, we went to down quite significantly and crashed down to 40,000 from our retest of the high 60,000 region. Okay, tested for resistance right here, led to Bitcoin not breaking the macro range and going downwards one more, again in a big crash. Same thing right here for support. Losing it led to a big drop downwards and deviation below this level right here, which we mentioned before. And I could go onwards, right, and into Bitcoin's price history. The point is right now what we've done, and in recent weeks what we've done, is we've gotten back above that 62 level. Excellent. And breaking back above that 62 level was the antithesis of breaking below it. And what I mean by that is we broke below it here, we broke back above it there. So breaking below that 62 level on the RSI led to a breakdown of this range. Breaking back above it led to a break back into this range. And obviously, if the logic proceeds, in order to break above the range, we need to remain above the 62 level. Now, this recent short-term correction we've seen from the 112K region has led to continuous retests of 62 on the RSI over the last 2 weeks. But luckily, and this is the important part, luckily, the last two candles we have seen on the weekly chart have been basically more or less, well, the last one we saw specifically was a doji candle, a candle of neutral indecision, right? A candle which you see in a short-term downtrend like we're seeing now, showing and displaying strength in the downtrend, showing that the bears are not necessarily in control here, even though the price chart seems to assume that's the case, right? This is excellent to see. It shows that we have strong support, not just randomly, but from a strong level that most people aren't seeing, which is the 62 level on the RSI. It's excellent to see, really. And it lays the groundwork for a potential opportunity that Bitcoin might have here, right? The problem is that opportunity has not been brought into fruition yet. And in order for Bitcoin to bring that opportunity into fruition on the short term, we need to be breaking a short-term neckline of resistance, which has acted as resistance and support throughout the entirety of this range since the May 9th, okay, which is over a month ago, it's about 6 weeks ago at this point. This neckline, which currently stands on Bitcoin at $107,000, okay, needs to be broken. And we can say that because every time it's been broken and lost before, it's had significant implications, not only on Bitcoin, but on the altcoin market, which right now is extremely reactive to Bitcoin because the altcoin market is begging to break outwards and form some sort of mini altcoin season, right? And I mean that quite seriously. On every single local move we've seen in the last 2 months, on Bitcoin, where Bitcoin has gone upwards, Ethereum's outperformed Bitcoin dramatically, right? The altcoin market is begging to move upwards, and it's being highly reactive to Bitcoin, as I said. Even on this recent break from the exact neckline we're testing right now on June 9th, it's Ethereum that we saw jumping to the upside, right? It's Ethereum BTC that we saw once again pressing up against its major 4-year-long downtrending resistance line on the RSI and testing the top of its short-term triangle formation that I'm circling right there. Now, that's kind of a topic for another video. I don't want to go too in-depth into altcoins in this video, but we can also bring up the altcoin market cap chart, seeing this massive cup formation, which is testing for support right now, just waiting to bounce for it for a flip. That's a big cup and handle if you want to look at it from another way. Same thing on the total cryptocurrency market cap chart. Okay, flipping the 2021 all-time high for support right now, just waiting for the bounce, right? The point is the altcoin market, as I said before, is waiting for Bitcoin to do something. Bitcoin needs to lead the way. And with the weekly chart on Bitcoin giving us such, a sense of optimism here, there is hope. We really want to see that follow through in the short term. We really want to see 107,000 break to the upside, and we'll have a great opportunity of breaching up even further and breaking the macro if that does occur. Now, the downside scenario is, of course, we reject right here, we form a lower low, we break below 100,000. At that point, we're steamrolling right towards that critical region of support, which we absolutely need to hold, which is basically the bottom of the macro range between 96 and 93. I'm speaking very fast here because I've kind of covered a lot of this before. But what's been highlighted, and the new thing that's been highlighted in the last 24 hours of price action, is how important it is that Bitcoin breaks upwards right now. Not necessarily because the entire bull run is at stake, but because if we do move downwards from here, right, we will be dramatically reducing the potential of the bull market later in this year. And we will be introducing the risk that the bull market could be over as we approach a region that needs to hold in order for the bull market to remain. So lots of words were said there, but it did actually make sense. I put effort into articulating that. If you don't understand, just rewind 10 seconds and listen again. The major resistance zones we face are still not only related to Bitcoin. They come from the USDT dominance chart, reverse correlated to Bitcoin. We want this chart to break downwards. It's on major support, which it's held for years on end. We need it to break, and it hasn't broken yet. And that will only likely occur when Bitcoin makes a decision by breaking out of its macro range. But in order to do so, it needs to take steps in that direction first. And the first step will be breaking this resistance right here, right now. Luckily, the optimism that has been granted to us by the weekly chart on Bitcoin is not isolated to the weekly chart. It's also stemming through two traditional markets. You know, we had the big Trump tariff correction back here in March and April. That's mostly resolved now. We're coming back on all-time highs in the S&P, and the DXY, again, reverse correlated to cryptocurrency and the traditional markets, is breaking down from major support. That's excellent to see. So there are actually sources of optimism coming from traditional markets, coming from the Bitcoin weekly chart, and just in grounding yourself in the cyclical context. Like, it's not like we're in a bear market yet here cyclically. It's the difference between seeing a pretty pathetic bull market and seeing a potentially still quite amazing bull market. And that difference could come in whether we waste time correcting or whether we go upwards right from here. So with all of that said, I'm going to be paying very close attention to the charts in the next few days. And this video's intention was not necessarily to sit here and give you a prediction. I didn't make a prediction in this video. I don't really think I can. I think there's too much uncertainty right here. But what it was is it's trying to inform you of what's important. If we do, like, I'll make a prediction right now. We break this 107, let's say $108,000 region. Bitcoin's in an extremely good position to move upwards and break the macro range. There's a kind of prediction for you. I suppose it's just probabilities once more, but yeah, look, all I'm doing is I'm shedding light on what's happening. I'm shedding light on the context here. You know, without shedding light on what's happening and shedding light on the context, you won't understand why it's important for Bitcoin to move upwards in the short term. And if Bitcoin did move downwards, you won't understand why that's important as well. There's more to TA than just making blanket statements about what you think will happen next. In fact, that's a very infantile way of doing TA in my view, especially when you rely on confirmations for buy and sells. I personally won't be making any buy and sells until macro ranges break in this context. So that's my opinion. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Again, check out that Bitunix Exchange if you are interested. It's global, non-KYC, never been hacked before, which is exceptionally good, by the way. So sign up from anywhere in the world with my referral link down below, and you'll get a 15% trading fee discount attached to your account for life. You also get access, by the way, I didn't mention it at the start, to over $8,000 in rewards if you are lucky. And you can see that down the bottom of the screen right there. That's with my referral link. Check it out. It's a very major exchange. No regulatory pressure right now, which is quite rare. So the link's down below. And I'll also mention, we've got our group chat. It's on Telegram. It's free. It's a community group chat. You can go in there. You can answer people's questions, ask questions, share charts. 225 members in there right now, hoping to get it more lively. So go ahead and join up. You can see a bunch of people joining recently. Check it out if you're interested.